Yesterday she woke up before sunrise. Not because of an alarm, but because farmers don't need one. The land decides the time. She stepped out into the cold morning air, boots sinking slightly into damp soil. Wheat fields stretched endlessly in front of her, golden and quiet. She checked irrigation lines, fixed a broken fence, fed the animals. It was a normal life, a peaceful one. No one in the nearby village knew who she used to be. By afternoon, she washed the dirt from her hands, packed a small bag, and drove toward the airport. Just another passenger catching an evening flight. Just another face in a crowd. At least that's what everyone thought. The commercial jet climbed smoothly through the clouds, sunlight spilling across the cabin. Passengers relaxed, headphones on, drinks served. The hum of the engines was steady, comforting. She sat by the window in seat 24A. Her clothes were simple. No jewelry, no makeup, her hair tied back neatly. On her wrist, a faded scar ran across the skin, something most people would never notice. She stared outside, watching the sky with an expression that didn't quite match the calm of the cabin. This wasn't her first time flying. It was just the first time she wasn't supposed to be here. Across the aisle, a businessman tapped at his laptop. A young couple laughed quietly. A child pressed his face to the window, pretending the wing was a spaceship. She closed her eyes. The engine sound shifted. Not enough for most people to notice, but enough for her. Her eyes snapped open. A second later, the plane shook violently. A loud bang echoed through the fuselage. Screams erupted instantly. The aircraft lurched to the left as warning chimes rang. Overhead bins rattled. A flight attendant stumbled, grabbing a seat to stay upright. "Ladies and gentlemen," the captain's voice came on, tense but controlled. "We appear to have experienced an engine malfunction. Please remain seated." Outside the window, flames flickered briefly before disappearing. The left engine was gone. Panic spread like fire. Phones came out. People prayed. A woman began crying uncontrollably. The child stopped smiling. She didn't move. Her breathing slowed instead. She listened. She counted seconds. She watched the altitude drop just slightly, too slightly for civilians to notice, but enough to confirm what she feared. The plane could still fly on one engine. For now. Minutes passed like hours. The cabin crew moved quickly, forcing smiles, checking seatbelts. The captain updated again. "We are diverting to the nearest airport. Situation is under control." That's when the right engine coughed. Once, twice, then died. The lights flickered. The hum vanished. Silence fell, heavy, unnatural silence, broken only by the rush of wind. The plane began to descend. Fast. Oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling. This time, the captain didn't speak. The intercom stayed dead. People screamed. Someone shouted, "We're going down!" A flight attendant sank to her knees, shaking. The businessman dropped his laptop, face pale. The child clutched his mother. And in seat 24A, the farmer unbuckled her seatbelt. She stood. "Ma'am, sit down," a crew member yelled, voice cracking. She ignored it. Her eyes were locked on the front of the aircraft. Her heart didn't race. Her hands didn't shake. She had felt this before, years ago, at much higher altitudes in far worse conditions. She moved down the aisle as the plane shuddered again. A man grabbed her arm. "Where do you think you're going?" She gently pulled free. Her voice was calm, firm. "I need to get to the cockpit." "You'll get killed," someone screamed. She stopped walking and turned. For the first time, people really looked at her. Not the clothes, not the dust still under her nails. Her eyes. They were focused, sharp, empty of fear. She spoke clearly, each word measured. "Listen to me. Both engines are out. Screaming won't help. Let me through." A flight attendant stood in front of the cockpit door, crying openly. I can't open it. That's against protocol." The plane dipped sharply, throwing everyone forward. She grabbed the wall, steady as stone. She leaned closer, lowering her voice so only the attendant could hear. "I've flown worse than this. I've landed with less." The attendant shook her head. "Who are you?" For a brief moment, the farmer hesitated. That name, that life, she had buried it years ago. But 200 lives were hanging in the air. She straightened. "Ex-Air Force," she said quietly. Then after a beat, call sign Harvest. The words hit differently. Not loud, not dramatic, but heavy. Like a door unlocking in the mind. Another violent drop shook the aircraft. The cockpit door buzzed. Unlocked. She pushed it open. Inside, chaos waited. Warning lights blazed red and amber. Alarms screamed. The smell of burnt electronics filled the air. One pilot was slumped forward, unconscious. The other was barely holding on, oxygen mask crooked, eyes unfocused. The controls shook under the strain of dead engines. She stepped inside and closed the door behind her. Her hands hovered over the yoke. Muscle memory surged. The sky outside was falling toward them. She took a deep breath. "All right," she whispered to the aircraft like an old friend. "Let's see what we've got." The cockpit door sealed shut behind her with a heavy click. For a second, she just stood there absorbing the chaos. Warning lights flashed like a battlefield under fire. The air smelled of smoke and hot metal. The altimeter needle was unwinding too fast. She moved. Years fell away in a heartbeat. She slid into the captain's seat and gripped the yoke, feeling the familiar resistance vibrate through her arms. The aircraft was heavy, wounded, but still flying, barely. She glanced at the unconscious pilot, checked his pulse quickly. Alive. The co-pilot was conscious, eyes glassy with shock. "Hey," she said firmly, "stay with me." He tried to speak but coughed instead. Both engines were dead, completely. No thrust, no second chances. She trimmed the nose down, easing the plane into a controlled glide. The shaking lessened slightly. In the cabin, screams softened into tense silence as the passengers felt the difference. Falling had turned into flying. She reached for the radio. "Mayday, mayday, mayday," she said, voice calm and clear. "This is Harvest. We are a dual-engine failure at flight level 320, establishing glide." Static. Then a voice broke through. "Aircraft calling Mayday, identify yourself." She exhaled slowly. "Commercial Flight 718, pilot incapacitated. I have control." A pause. Controllers weren't trained for this answer. "Confirm, you are not the assigned captain?" "Negative," she replied. "Ex-Air Force. Request nearest landing option, any surface." The controller's voice tightened. "Stand by." She scanned the displays rapidly. Hydraulic pressure, low but holding flaps. Manual possible. Landing gear, one shot. Outside, the sky was clear. Below them, mountains, forest, then farmland. Her land. The co-pilot finally focused. You fly military?" "Used to." "Used to?" His voice cracked. "We're at 30,000 feet." She met his eyes. "Then trust me." The controller returned. "Harvest, nearest runway is 1 miles south. Abandoned military strip, no emergency services." Her lips pressed together. 11 miles. At this glide ratio, it was possible, barely. "I'll take it," she said. "Give me heading." As she turned the aircraft, the plane groaned in protest. She adjusted gently, coaxing it, never forcing. This wasn't a machine anymore. It was a living thing in pain. In the cabin, flight attendants regained enough control to speak. A senior attendant picked up the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a trained pilot in the cockpit. Please remain seated." A murmur of disbelief swept through the plane. A man whispered, "Who is she?" No answer came. In the cockpit, sweat ran down her spine. Her hands were steady, but her arms burned from the constant pressure. She hadn't flown anything this big in years. Fighters forgave aggression. Airliners demanded patience. The runway appeared in the distance, thin, cracked, surrounded by weeds. "Too short." Her jaw tightened. She lowered the flaps manually. The nose dipped. Airspeed bled off dangerously. "Come on," she murmured. The co-pilot watched in awe. "You're flying this like it's alive." "It is," she said, "and it wants to land." At 3,000 feet, the plane hit turbulence. The left wing dropped suddenly. She corrected instantly. Memories flashed, desert skies, radio chatter, friends who never came home. The moment she'd walked away, the promise she'd made to herself. Never again. Yet here she was. "Harvest," the tower called. "Wind is cross from the west. You're coming in hot." "I know," she replied. The runway rushed toward them. "Gear down," she said, pulling the lever. The plane shook violently as the landing gear slammed into place. One light stayed red. Partial lock. She swallowed hard. No abort. No go-around. One chance, she whispered. At 500 feet, the co-pilot crossed himself. She aligned the nose perfectly, adjusting with micro-movements, feeling every vibration through her bones. The main wheels hit. Hard. The plane bounced once. Passengers screamed. She forced the nose down gently, fighting the instinct to yank back. The second impact was better. Sparks flew as metal scraped asphalt. A wingtip clipped the ground. Then friction took over. The plane slowed. Faster. Slower. Until finally, it stopped. Silence. For one heartbeat, no one moved. Then the cabin erupted. Crying, prayers, shouts of joy, applause thundered through the aircraft. She slumped back in the seat, chest heaving. The co-pilot laughed through tears. You did it. She closed her eyes. We did. Emergency crews arrived late, stunned by what they found. When the cockpit door opened, people stared at her like she wasn't real. Her passenger asked, "Who are you?" She stood slowly, legs shaking. "Just a farmer," she said. Outside, she looked at the open fields beyond the runway, green, calm, waiting. Tomorrow, she would return to them. But today, she had flown again. And somewhere in the sky, an old call sign echoed one last time.